tally is in, the votes have been counted, and we do not need a recount. We're talking about the 2017 Ward's 10 Best Engines list, and we have much of the staff here of Ward's Auto to talk about the winners. To my right, Drew Winter, Christy Swinesberg, Bob Gritzinger, and Dave Zoya. So let's talk about the ground rules of the Ward's 10 Best Engines. We've been doing this for 23 years. And this year's field is 40 engines and propulsion systems, because we include the hybrids and the electrics as well. And we only test those engines that are all new or have been significantly improved within the past year. So the field of 40 includes those 10 engines from last year plus 30 all new or significantly improved engines. And we've had a lot of interesting trends this year. I would say that this year's field represents a real split in the market. And we can see where most of the money is being spent on new powertrain programs. There's a lot of money being spent on hybrids and plug-ins, a lot of money being spent on turbocharged engines. So that makes up most of the field. And as you'll see, it makes up most of our list as well. So that kind of creamy center area of, that used to be bread and butter gasoline engines has kind of gone away. It's either gone to the hybrids or it's gone to the high output turbo engines. So I'm going to read through the list. We've got, of course, our 10 winners, and in order. And it's worth noting we have 10 engines, but there is no ranking from 1 to 10. So I'm going to read them alphabetically. The number 10 engine is as good as the number 1 engine. The 3-liter turbocharged dual overhead cam inline 6 in the BMW M240i. Also the 1.5-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder engine that is paired with dual motors for the Chevrolet Volt extended range electric vehicle. The 3.6-liter dual overhead cam V6 also paired with dual motors in the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. The 2.3-liter turbo dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in the Ford Focus RS. The 2-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder paired with dual motors in the Honda Accord Hybrid. The 1.4-liter turbo dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in the Hyundai Elantra Eco. The 3-liter turbocharged dual overhead cam V6 in the Infiniti Q50. The 2.5-liter turbocharged dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in the Mazda CX-9, 2-liter turbo dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in the Mercedes-Benz C300, and finally the 2-liter turbo and supercharged dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in the Volvo V60 Polestar. That's a whole lot of turbocharged engines right there. So let's talk first about the BMW. This is a really important engine. This is the B58 engine that springs from this new, it's a modular engine family that comes from BMW, and it doesn't exactly replace, it augments the N55 engine that had been on our list for 3 years running from 2011 to 2013, and now they've taken this B58 engine and they've improved on it since it won last year in our competition. And they put it in this 2 Series coupe, and we just had a great time testing it. Anybody have any comments about the M240i?
What a blast!
Yeah.
I mean,
335 horsepower. It does everything that we want it to in terms of not only the the high end. It loves to rev, but it's also very smooth and quiet and docile, kind of in everyday driving. And it's worth mentioning we had 2 BMWs in the competition this year. Not only the not only this M240i that won, but also the M2, which has the N55 engine that has been heavily modified. And both of those scored really highly in the competition. The only reason that we picked the M240i was because it did better in terms of fuel efficiency, and we didn't feel that it really compromised too much in terms of the performance.
That was the one thing that I thought was really impressive. The fuel economy was better than what we got with a lot of the Turbo 4s in this competition.
Yeah.
So, the thing is near perfection in terms of operation, and you don't really pay any fuel economy penalty.
Right.
And it's almost sad because this is a it's almost a unicorn now as a inline six engine. They're just it may be the last one left or one of the last ones left, and it's just a inline six is a perfect balance and just it sounds great. It's wonderful to drive, wonderfully efficient, and too bad that packaging and everything else is kind of really forcing most automakers to abandon the architecture.
Yeah. Do you think that there's not much of a future for the inline six? I mean, clearly BMW is locked into that for the long term, but the V6s have become very smooth as well. So we've seen improvements on both sides. But do you think the i6 has a short shelf life?
I think at BMW it's part of the brand character, but I think everywhere else, I mean, it may it doesn't work for. Doesn't work for people. It's with pedestrian protection and car heights and hood heights and all those different things that are affecting packaging. Yeah. It's there'll be some great BMW engines in the future.
Yeah. So the N55 engine that we tested in the M2 is slightly faster 0 to 60. That's like 4.1 seconds. This one in the M240i was 4.4 seconds 0 to 60. And to me, I didn't feel like there was much of a trade-off. I mean, I still felt like, okay, I'm getting all the power that I really want or need. So that was why I thought it belonged on the list in place of the N55. It would have been great to have both of them on the list, but we can't really put two turbo inline six-cylinder engines on the list.
That's a big engine in a small coupe, lightweight coupe.
Yep.
So no wonder it performs well and puts up good fuel economy.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Chevy Volt. Of course, it made our list last year. Made our list when the first generation launched, 2010, 2011. And now they've made some significant improvements in the Volt, extending the range now to 53 miles, I think, when you plug in. And then, of course, the fuel economy that we were getting during our testing, some of us were getting 60, 70, 80, 110 miles per gallon, depending on how often you were charging.
Well, and there's a lot more torque now too, especially from the initial launch from about 0 to 30 or whatever, and man, it just makes it really fun to drive. And it was just the first one was cool, but this one is really really fun to drive, and I think that has had a big impact on current owners, making them wanting to trade up, and just in the overall acceptance of the vehicle.
Yeah.
We should note there's a lot of competition this year, but the Volt is a returning winner from last year, even with all the other alternative propulsion systems.
Yeah, so last year we had 3 hybrids on the list for the first time ever, including the Chevy Volt. We had the Hyundai Sonata plug-in hybrid. We also had what was the third? The Toyota Prius. And this year we had
3 hybrids, 7 plug-in hybrids,
and 7 plug-in hybrids, which we've never had so many of those, in the competition this year. And they were all really good. So we'll talk about the others in just a minute. Did you want to say something?
But this, as a returning winner, there was nothing there to knock it off the pedestal.
Right.
You can't argue with 53 miles of range.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody's followed that formula yet, and I think the fun to drive,
next
not to make
candidate comes
hybrids,
close,
you can say are fun to
Right.
drive, and I
Yeah.
think this thing is.
Yeah. So as a Volt owner, a first-gen Volt owner,
I would.
How do you see the evolution?
I would love to upgrade to this, and very likely will when the time comes. You get better packaging inside. You get an actual small fifth seat, but the extra torque, this thing tears around like a sports car, and just the added range, all of those things combine to make it just such an improvement.
Yep. So the next winner on our list, the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. Again, it's a plug-in, and we were really impressed with that in terms of the overall fuel economy. We were all getting, in the mid-30s in a large vehicle.
Yeah,
and the ability to plug in and run in electric mode a lot of the time was very impressive. And I think the NVH was just ideal. And then it's paired up when you run out of battery range. It's paired up with this 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, which has been detuned for this application, which is great. Helps with the fuel economy. Bob, you've had a lot of experience with this vehicle.
Well, I got to drive it on the launch program out in California, prime conditions for a hybrid and a plug-in, anything with batteries. And it certainly met the posted driving range, now listed at 33 electric miles with a full charge. But I guess the thing that really struck me more than anything is just seamless integration. Unless you really step into the pedal and make that V6 crank up and go to redline, it's really hard to tell whether it's running on battery mode,
right,
battery and engine mode. The twin electric motors working together combined with the engine. It's just so refined.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
And of course, you want to plug in to maximize your fuel efficiency. But when you've run out of juice, now you're running on gasoline engine. And I noticed during my weekend test drive of that vehicle that I was still pushing 38, 39 miles per gallon without any juice in the battery, which is really interesting.
Very much like the Volt, there's some kind of game-changing thing going on with this E-Flight transmission they've developed, where they can pair those two electric motors instead of just using one as a traction motor.
Right.
And the amazing thing to me is that somehow the vehicle is producing electric miles when the battery power is showing 0%. It still will operate in electric mode, so it's
right,
going into some kind of a reserve that works above and beyond the listed range.
Right.
And that's what's getting us that great fuel economy.
Yeah. Cost is an issue. So, this is not an inexpensive minivan. I'm talking about the whole range of the Pacifica. Yet in this case, for the hybrid, the base price is about $41,000, which is not outrageous in my opinion.
Right.
Of the overall pricing within the minivan market in the U.S. I think they've managed to keep the price down, which is really impressive. And at this point, it's worth noting that the sticker price cap for our vehicle, the base price cap for our competition is $62,000 this year. So the MSRP on every vehicle that we tested was under $62,000, and anything over that should have a best engine anyway. So that's why we have a price cap to definitely have more affordable vehicles in the competition. The next vehicle on our list is the Ford Focus RS. This is a Turbo 4 hot hatch, making 350 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque, and wow, it just it spools up quickly. The exhaust note is to die for. Just a whole lot of fun. Dave, you enjoyed that
wow,
vehicle.
it's right. I think I think it was the most fun car to drive that we had in this whole slate of 40 cars. It just like you said, it just responds so quick. It's got gobs of power. It's
small,
brilliant.
light.
Yeah, small.
Tossable.
It's a good formula.
Yeah.
All-wheel drive.
Yeah.
All-wheel drive.
Putting the power to the ground.
I couldn't imagine that much power if in just
In
a
a
standard
front-wheel
drive Focus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like you'd just twist the axle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did anybody take it to the red line? 8250?
I took it very close.
Yeah.
Close. I mean, you don't have to. You're having a lot of fun around 7,000 RPM. But yeah, I mean, if I did go to the upper reaches, and it stayed very calm and composed, and didn't feel like it was going to shake apart or anything like that.
That really surprised me about it, the character of it. I thought it was going to be just like vibrating like crazy and very noisy, and it's not at all. It's very civilized, I would say.
Well, and it's worth noting that this is an engine that we tested in the Mustang 2 years ago, I think. For the first time, for the first time in modern times, they put a four-cylinder in the Mustang, and it's this engine, but in this application for the Focus, it's been retuned quite a bit. They changed the heads, higher capacity turbocharger. A lot of interesting new content. So it wasn't just a matter of, oh, they slapped the Mustang engine into the Focus RS, so we should test it. No, there was enough new content for us to consider it new by our terms. So.
And it should also be noted, when we were talking about performance vehicles, this was strong enough to bump the Shelby GT350 off the list this year. I mean, it's not a direct swap, but this is the latest and greatest.
That was a tough decision that we made this year when we picked our winners. The Ford Shelby GT350 Mustang, of course, was a winner last year, which means it was eligible this year. It scored very highly, but we looked at the list and we really wanted to have a good mix, and it was hard to let that one go because we all love that engine, and it had its day in the sun last year. And we look forward to other improvements in that so we can test it again in the future.
Well, and this may mark the first time we've never had a V8 on the 10 best engines list in 23 years.
But only 2 were in the running.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought this had a lot of that character of that V8. Even the sound you mentioned was very V8-ish.
Yeah.
Immediate response.
It shows how, when we originally started looking at some of these, the 54.5 fuel economy regulations, and V8s are going to go away and cars aren't going to be fun anymore, and I think this kind of shows the way to the future that, hey, cars are still going to be fun.
Cars can be a whole lot of fun with only 4 cylinders.
Yeah,
truly. Mm-hmm. All right, so our next vehicle on the list is the Honda Accord Hybrid. It's worth noting we had a Honda Accord Hybrid on our list, 10, 11 years ago, when it was a V6. I don't know if you remember that. It was a V6 Honda Accord Hybrid that didn't get the kind of fuel economy that we did with this new 4-cylinder version. We got 46, 47, 48, 49 miles per gallon in this Honda Accord, which is a good-sized sedan. Christy, you really enjoyed that one.
I did. So this is a hybrid, but it actually has some extended range capability that when you go into hybrid mode, so there's 2 motors. When you go into hybrid mode, a smaller generator motor generates electricity for the traction motor, which feeds the lithium-ion battery pack. So this is, giving you better fuel economy. It's also very it's non-hybrid-like. I think, Dave, you mentioned that you felt like you were not driving a hybrid, that it sort of has a normal character to it.
Well, and Honda has done such a great job with the CVT. We've celebrated their CVTs for a number of years. They just seem less obtrusive. They're smoother. They just seem more natural. And and in this application, it's just a perfect match, I think. So.
Yeah, I don't think you felt the weight in it at all. There's I think if you were blindfolded and put behind the wheel, you might not know you were driving a hybrid.
And it's a lot of fun too. The traction motor has 232 pound-feet from 0 to 2,000 RPM, so you can really fly off the line in this car.
And then 212 horsepower combined. There's nothing wrong with that in a car that size.
No.
It wasn't long ago that 190 horsepower in the Nissan Maxima was a big deal. So just you see that evolution of output. On the Hyundai Elantra Eco, that's our next vehicle that made our list, and this would fall into that category of the kind of vehicle that we really want on this list. That it's for people who might not pay that much attention to technology, but they want something that's fuel efficient, something that's low maintenance, something that is just really pleasurable to drive, and this vehicle totally fits the bill at $21,000 out the door, well equipped. And Hyundai in general has been great about, putting a lot of content in their vehicles. In our opinion, the best part of the content on this vehicle is this engine. This 1.4-liter turbocharged Kappa engine, which is all new. A lot of interesting new technology. They employed exhaust scavenging, which is helping to boost efficiency. And just, a lot of fun to drive, too. This one went up against the Chevy Cruze, which also has a new small 1.4-liter turbo. They were both very equally matched. They both did well, but the Elantra Eco did better in terms of fuel economy overall. So, Christy, you
Yeah,
enjoyed that one
this
too.
is a great deal. I mean, so many times you pay a premium when you get a hybrid or any alternative propulsion system in a vehicle. This obviously is not a hybrid, but you're getting that hybrid-like fuel economy. I think we did 35 to 40 miles per gallon collectively as a group. Good NVH. I mean, $20,000, $21,000. You're usually at, you have higher noise and vibration levels. That wasn't so much the case here. Really impressive power off the line, a lot of low-end torque, more low-end torque than the base engine and the Elantra.
Well, and an advanced transmission with a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. That that's something you normally see in a luxury car, and it obviously contributes to the economy and the efficiency of the engine, the drivability, and I think this is part of Hyundai's strategy. They've got a lot of faith in dual clutch transmissions, moving them throughout their platforms. And it's if I got to pick between a DCT and a CVT, I would pick the DCT every time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then they have this interesting split cooling system. One route for the head and one for the block, which you don't always see in an engine that is this inexpensive. In terms of our fuel economy, our observed fuel economy, some people did better than 42 miles per gallon, which is really impressive considering that the EPA sticker, the highway number is 40 miles per gallon. So we're very, very impressed with that. Next up is one of those high output turbo engines. The Infiniti Q50 has a 3-liter dual overhead cam V6 twin turbos that makes 400 horsepower. And it went right up against the new 400 horsepower twin turbo V6 in the Lincoln MKZ and also in the Lincoln Continental. But we found that the fuel efficiency was quite a bit better with the Infiniti engine, and didn't feel that it was lacking in terms of performance either. Dave, you?
Yeah, I think those were two great engines. The Lincoln and this one, and I think probably what separated for me anyway was the power delivery in this was a little smoother, I think, a little more linear, a little more befitting of a luxury car, but tons of power, and so it was a blast to drive as well. But I thought the whole entire package was just a great fit in this car.
When you stepped into it,
it slams you.
It's a sports sedan.
Yeah.
Power is very stealth.
Yeah.
It's there and it's hiding, and
It is hiding most of the time when you're hard on it that you really realize. And then when you take it to the high, to the upper RPM range, it's like, holy smokes, this is this is crazy.
And same with the MVH. It was very quiet when you wanted it to be, and then when you put your foot into it a little bit, you got a little note to it, and it made it more fun.
And they did a lot of work on the technology side of this engine as well. Mirror bore coating on the cylinders. There was something else. On the electrically actuated intake valves.
Right.
Very interesting.
And the integrated exhaust manifold.
And that's another trend that we've seen in a number of vehicles of getting rid of the external exhaust manifold and integrating it within the head. So you're getting rid of this cast iron piece that is adding a lot of weight. So it's a good thing that we're seeing a lot of automakers doing. We will move on and talk about the next engine, and that was the the Mazda CX-9 with a 2.5-liter turbo 4. This is from the Skyactiv engine family. We've had the 2-liter Skyactiv engine on our list a number of years ago, and then they went to a 2.5-liter, but this is the first time that they've turbocharged any of these new Skyactiv engines, and Skyactiv means that it's optimized for friction reduction and such, but also incorporating direct injection. So in this case, they put this small 4-cylinder engine turbocharged into a 7-passenger CUV, and boy, it just moves the vehicle effortlessly. Good off the line, great mid-range. NVH is really nice. CX-9. Who wants to talk about CX-9?
Yeah, well, it's Mazda is a small automaker. They don't have billions of dollars to invest in all these different types of powertrain technology, so they're focusing a lot on just making internal combustion engines as efficient as possible. And I think they've really focused on this engine with did some really, I think, clever things, kind of wonky things. I mean, it wasn't a matter of hybridization or anything else, but they did some really heavy-duty combustion engineering to make the turbocharger more efficient, to deliver lower, more boost at low RPMs. Some real interesting the way they did this, the exhaust manifold. All
431 exhaust manifold.
So it comes in.
The scavenging.
Yeah, and so they do all these.
People do all kinds of things to get a turbo to spool up quicker, variable vane, and they do twin scroll or two different turbos, one low end, one high end, and one on our list here we'll talk about is turbo and supercharged to get past that leg.
Yep.
These guys solve it just by the way they direct the exhaust gases from cylinders together into one to produce that boost early.
And then they like to talk about the valve they have in there that acts like a thumb on a garden hose, where at lower pressure it'll spin the turbo faster at lower boost pressures and things. And just a lot of creative, ingenious engineering, and I think that's one of the things that we like to recognize. At 10 Best Engines, and I certainly was really impressed with.
Yeah. 227 horsepower, nothing wrong with that number. And our observed fuel economy was around 23 miles per gallon, which is basically in line with with the EPA numbers. So we were really impressed with that one. Mm-hmm. Mercedes-Benz C300. Now this is this again is kind of a sleeper engine. This is an engine that was making 210 horsepower, or 211 horsepower 4 or 5 years ago in the Mercedes CLA. And now they've taken it back to the shop, and and now it's cranking out 241 horsepower in a car the size of the C-Class, which by today's standards it's kind of a small to mid-size, but boy, so much fun to drive. And in this case, we had the Mercedes, this 2-liter Mercedes engine up against a 2-liter BMW engine up against a 2-liter Audi engine. And all three of them were just magnificent. We really loved them all, except that the Mercedes beat them all in terms of fuel efficiency. Didn't you find that to be true?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it wasn't the highest horsepower. It was up there, I think, at the top end on the torque. But it just seemed that it found the kind of the happy zone for us. I think it was. The Audi was quicker off the line, had a little more jump, I think. But this engine just did everything well, I think, and had surprising, I think, power you didn't expect.
That's right. Actually, the BMW did
BMW's better on the fuel
efficiency,
economy.
but this one was close.
Yeah,
the BMW was like 27, 28.
Yeah,
this one was 20,
like
25, 26.
25 to 28 is what you...
Yeah.
Yeah, so we, like I said, I think it was the compromise engine in some ways, but it just performed, I think, best just across the whole range.
That seemed like just that smooth operation, almost, you would almost think V6 sort of feel from a turbo 4-cylinder. We tested 16 turbo 4-cylinders, and to me, this was the sleeper, the best one in terms of overall performance and feel, just to be able to drive it and have it operate without hesitation and just provide ample power.
And yet Mercedes doesn't talk much about it.
You
look at their press materials on the C-Class and the E-Class. The reason that this is in the competition is because I drove this engine in the E-Class, which is even bigger, back in the summer. I was like, wow, tell me about this engine. Well, we did this and we did that, and it's making more horsepower, more torque. Well, but beyond that, you go into their materials, they don't have a whole lot of detail.
AMGs and C45s and all
the
this
user
different
experience.
stuff. The user experience. And then, there's a couple sentences on, we put
There's something under the hood that makes
this
it go.
4-cylinder turbo in that C300, and you'll like it.
Wow. The starting MSRP is nice, $42,650. That's really reasonable.
And this is a really well-equipped luxury car. with a four-cylinder engine. And I'm glad to see that automakers, feel empowered enough to put a good four-cylinder engine in a luxury car where people would be expecting a V6 or a V8 not long ago. The fours are doing just fine.
You would not be unhappy with this.
No, not at all, not at all. All right, so our last vehicle to recognize is the Volvo V60 Polestar with a 2-liter engine that is both turbocharged and supercharged, making 362 horsepower. Mm-hmm. Do the math, that's 181 horsepower per liter. We've never had that kind of specific output in an engine in our competition ever before. We've had close to 170, but this is just off the charts. And it's also worth noting this engine is basically a return winner because we had it last year in the Volvo XC90 when it made 316 horsepower. So they put a bigger turbocharger on it, and they do some other some other improvements to the I think they have all new connecting rods and some other new content to handle this much horsepower and torque, making 362 now. So we tested the detuned version, the 316 horsepower version, in the Volvo S90 sedan, which again, I mean, both those engines are fabulous, but we just had to recognize the one that makes 180 horsepower per liter.
The Rocket.
Well, Volvo's doing something right when they have teenage guys are coming up to you at the gas station and saying, "Oh, is that a Volvo Polestar?" I mean,
Yeah.
How do they know? Yeah, I mean, it's the bright blue that tips them off. Yeah.
That's good, though. I mean, we keep hearing younger buyers or younger people aren't interested in cars, and I found that to be the opposite driving this around.
Yeah.
This thing is crazy. I mean, the torque figure is misleading. It says 347 pound-feet at 3,100, but I can tell you there's a lot down low. I mean, this thing goes screaming off the line.
It does.
And there was no fuel economy penalty, it seemed like. There was no reason not to, pick this engine over the other one because you're getting all this power, and there doesn't seem to be a penalty.
So our range, our tested range of fuel economy was between 20 and 23 miles per gallon, which was completely in line with a lot of the four-cylinder turbos that we tested, and they weren't making 362 horsepower. Yeah. So it's very interesting that Volvo's managed to find this, this happy medium of crazy performance yet, good fuel economy. Also worth noting, I think, this is the kind of engine and vehicle package that could kind of redefine the Volvo brand image. I mean, you wouldn't expect this from a company known for making safe station wagons. So hopefully we're going to see more of this sort of thing.
This is one company when it set out to redefine itself, it actually seems to be working.
Right.
We hear this a lot. It doesn't often go well, but this it's really, Volvo's becoming a different company.
Absolutely. And it's also worth noting that this vehicle came within $400 of our price cap at $61,600. That's the base price. So it was close to the cap, but it was definitely under the cap. That's going to wrap up our discussion for the 10 best engines, and we're going to start another segment talking about the other vehicles, so tune into that one as well. Thanks for watching.